Hi there, I'm Dani Henderson. Welcome back to my full disclosure channel and the beautiful hot summer's day. A little bit of summer here representing. It is so hot in England right now. I am not complaining. I'm sitting here with my fan on, my only fan, plugs into the wall. I love it. It could follow me around anywhere right now. Let me bring my beautiful guest to view. Her name is Beverly Rhodes. Hello, darling. How are you?
Hello, lovely. Yes, I can see you. Summer. I'm fine. I'm hot, but I still have a cardigan on. Some things never die. I'm still this icy cold one, aren't I?
Oh,
Yeah.
bless.
You look lovely in summery, I must say.
Thank you. All the doors are open. Every time I open them, bees come in. So hopefully I can be an adult and refrain from screaming. I thought, what?
Don't move your arms. Don't move your arms around because
Yeah,
the
I know
bees that creates that pheromone that they can smell, and then they
exactly. And
don't.
then when you scream, it's like, and they respond to that too. So yeah,
Vibration. Well, they're deaf. Bees are actually deaf.
but they feel the vibration. But
They
then
feel the vibration. So yeah, don't do
wasps.
that.
No, it's the wasps that, can be mean. But
Oh, yeah.
well, Beverly Rhodes, my love, you are a global legend on many levels. One for being a great psychic and a great spiritual leader in South Africa for many years, two other reasons that you are very well known. One of them is desperately horrific, which is the satanic abuses that you suffered at the hands of a pedo, your handler who raised you in a home. We've covered that
Yeah.
several broadcasts. Not that we want to skip over it, guys, if it's your first time. If it is your first time seeing me and Beverly together, I invite you to go on this channel, Dani Henderson, and go back through and see where you got the search button, put in Beverly Rhodes, Beverly with an I. And there's about three, four, five broadcasts there. The first couple are her awful childhood and surviving the worst journey that one cannot imagine and dreadful details. And today we're going to give more insight into this survivor of so much. The word survivor really does apply to you, Bev. It's like you've lived 10 lifetimes in one and you're still going. Thank goodness. We love that. Let us gently shift into your the one we just said we're going to talk about, a near-death experience, please, where someone literally dies, they're leaving the body, some see the tunnels, some see angels, and ultimately they come back into the body and are revived. But people literally, physically, completely die most of the time when they're having a near-death experience. So if you could take us into yours, that'd be great.
Oh, that's good. Thank you so much, Danny. So the near death experience is quite an unusual one because because I shut the experience down quite a bit and I wasn't prepared to go to the light. I wasn't prepared to go through the door. I'm quite an arsey cow most of the time, and I just thought, So I was in the Morningside Clinic, which is in South Africa, and it was a pretty serious operation. I'd gone to the doctor a few days before, and I had found two very large lumps bilaterally. So both those. I don't know what we can say, what we can't say.
Your boobs.
You're allowed to say that, right? So with those two, and I had been to the doctor. My ex-husband was at home, and they'd said they did all these tests. The test came back, and he said, "No, it's like you got to get in. We've got to get this out. We've got to sort of. I want you in and operated on within 48 hours. That's it, because it's going to spread because they'd seen that it was starting to move towards the lymph nodes." So I phoned my husband at the time, and I said to him, I think you got to know that this is what's happening with the doctor, and he's making arrangements and he's organizing the bed and the surgery and all that sort of thing. So I went home, and we just kind of sat there, and he said, "Well, are you going to go ahead with it?" I said, "Yes, I'm going to go ahead with it. I've got a job to do. I'm here. I've got my mission, and this is what I have to do." So we ended up Morningside Clinic, get checked in, all the usual stuff that you do when you go to hospital. And I said to him at the time, I said, "Well, I'm going to have this. If things go a bit astray, this is what I would like done." It's like almost, and he said, "No, I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But when you wake up, I'll just put my hand on your solar plexus, and I'll put my hand on your solar plexus and give you some energy and say, so at least you know I'm here, because you're going to be full of pipes and drips and all that rubbish. So I said, yeah, that's fine. So anyway, said my goodbyes, wheeled off. They really, really battled. They battled to get me under. They really battled, and they had to up the anesthetic to like what you would give an elephant, basically, to knock him out. And eventually, off I went. And they had the pipes, and they had this funny little green thing. And the I realized that I could hear this horrible beep, 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 beep. And I thought, no, what on earth is this now? And I started coming out of the body, and I was up at the top, and I was looking down on the surgery. And they'd already started doing all the cuts and the usual. And they were doing sort of injections and all these things. And what they then did is they were looking, but then the surgeon started talking about his tennis game. And I thought, mate, why are you talking about your tennis game? Can you not just concentrate on the girls, come
How
on,
rude.
yeah, how rude. And I was watching him from the ceiling, and I was thinking, come on, just stop talking about your your tennis game, and talk about, what you're doing, how you're doing, etc. Concentrate your job, mate. And then the next minute, there's this funny, funny sound, and I'm watching it from up there and thinking, and now what? And everyone's running around like idiots. And then I start disappearing out the side. And I thought, wait on a minute, what's going on? They were running around because I had started, I think it's called crashing. Because I think they had so much anesthetic in me just to shut me down, to get me to that point. And I think their anesthetist was like, oh, shoot, we've got a problem here. And so I started feeling like being pulled out. And I ended up in this completely nothing place, which was just white. It was like nothing. And then and then there was this funny little like portal over there. And then there was this door over there. And I thought, what's this about? I'm not going to any of those. And then somebody came to me with a no face and said, would you like to go into this funny portal, or would you like to go through the door? And I said, no, thank you very much, in exactly that tone. I said, no, thank you very much. I've got things to do. I've agreed what I've got to do here. And, I want to go back down. I'm not prepared to do any of that. And I said, and even if I was going to transition and stay here, I don't want that. And I don't want the door, because I'm not coming back. Forget it. Op it. So it was like, oh, okay, fine. She's a bit feisty. And then literally within seconds, I was pulled back into the body. Literally within seconds, pulled back into the body. And then they started again, because I think what it was, they they'd put adrenaline into my chest. That I know that because it was burnt like hell.
Oh, wow.
Into my chest. And then they did something else. I'm not quite sure what they did. It stopped them talking about their tennis game.
Well, it would do that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, funny that.
I just remembered the last two broadcasts we've done, because we did such heavy subjects, vampires and blood drinking, and how you would witness that, and other things last week. And the first week we did it most recently, it was Frozen. And I've got you
Yes.
on full screen right now, although I'm talking, so I'll be on full screen. But only with you we get
Oh,
messed with. And so halfway through this, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if nobody can see her on screen? Because there's no way of checking, because as I'm recording this, I'm looking at you. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, that's
So
weird.
we'll have to kind of, I think, I just don't like seeing myself on the screen the whole time. I prefer to have the guest, you. But I don't want to risk that it's just going to be stuck on me and no one's seeing you. So we'll continue like this. But yeah, that's incredible. So yeah, so they realized doing this, saving your life from breast cancer, that you are already up, crashing, flatlining.
So
Everyone's in
that
pain.
Yeah, that sort of thing is, yeah, I don't, it's not a very exciting one. Come on, guys, let's face it. There are loads of other people who got a far, far greater, review. But for me, I was peed off. I was seriously peed off because I knew what my mission was. I knew what I had to do. I'd been doing all sorts of broadcasts and I'd been on two different radio stations and was on different TV stations and things. And I just thought, bloody hell, give me a break here. I've got stuff I've got to do. I'm busy, just take me back. Thank you very much. Then that was it. So, and then I woke up and then I was in ICU. And then my ex-husband had his hand, as he promised, had his hand on my solar plexus because he said, I'm going to do that because I know that's what's needed. And that was fine. But it coincided then with the return from one of my 20 years in return. That was the time that they had the exchange, because I was trying to work out, well, how did I go, when did I go? And then when all those memories started coming back, I realized that switch was there and here, and then they age regressed and I ended up back in the hospital bed. I was in the hospital for a long time, but that was the switcheroo.
So we need to go there. So as we recognize us beings that we've had and have past lives, that there is a number of people that have what we call, well, it's a secret space program. Many humans have been taken into these programs. It's a timeline warp technology where you go to sleep one night, you wake up the next morning, but you've actually been taken for 20 years, and your
Mm.
family members know nothing of the order. Tony Rodriguez, to me, is the best example of that,
Yes.
because he
Yeah.
has brought back so many of his actual memories. Because, as he says, he was put into a side door. He didn't go through the same front door that most of the people are taken for the military, for the secret space programs. And so he thinks because of that, probably that's why he keeps remembering so much. And has obviously gone on to write books and to express. He was on my channel just the other day, and he's a very good friend of mine. And I really honor him so much for all of that. So you yourself were taken. And it makes sense because a lot of children who've suffered the satanic abuse,
Mm.
the horrible beings that have been running everything,
Yeah.
formerly Grey's reptilians and the satanic occult, they have just taken each human or each child and utilized in every imaginable way. It just gets passed along the production line, whether you're going to be in
Mm.
a military program, whether Tony Rodriguez uses a satanic sex toy, awful, awful, awful things. So share with us your memories. You were taken on a secret space program. What was it? How did you know about it? What country were you in? And give us as much detail as you can, please.
Mm. So when it all happened, it was obviously the switch happened in South Africa. So I was taken and returned back. But the problem is, I think my ex-husband would probably say she came back and she was very different. So I think, if he was around to say anything, and he doesn't generally comment, he's a man of few words, but he would have said, yeah, he did notice a lot of changes, and I think that those changes and issues, they didn't escalate. We just had a child and we decided that's it, we're going to part, because I think what he'd married and what he'd been able to marry in, with me and what we were doing, was somebody totally different, coming back. So though those 20 years being away from the earth realm and everything that was going on the other side, it did take its toll, even though I didn't realize that I had changed so much. I absolutely did not realize it. And so that was like a bit of a key for me. I was thinking, well, why? And then these funny little memories would bleed through, and I'd think, hang on a minute, what's that? And it's very stupid little things. It's things like I used to have really, really, really dark hair, and when I was on the other side, when I was working, they had taken my DNA and they had split them into two others. So it was B52, which was the reddish red hair type, person. And then there was uh, another one was very, very dark hair, but absolutely ridiculously trained, very fast. She was just everything I'm not. everything I'm not. I mean, she could just, she could use weapons, she could do all sorts of things. And
Talking
then
about an assassin, a psychotic assassin programmed to and probably has one, the keywords
get the information. Yeah.
including the kill switch in all. So I know you call it splitter heart. A lot of people will know it more as a clone. So you were cloned.
Okay. Yeah.
You have two clones. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that was the two clones. And I was sort of not the weaker, but I was, because I was very human, and I had my human emotions, and I had compassion, and I had all of those things all part of me, and I had to deal with a lot of stuff. And part of that was being able to do the work off world, off here in that area. And part of that was actually that particular 20 years was the time that I met Beaver Boy. Now, Beaver Boy is called, his real name is Joey. I won't use his surname, but Joey, when we were in the auction room, that's when I met Joey, and he was the little boy next to me. He was about 8 or 9. He was really young, and he did look like
Auction
a
room. You can't skip on. It's too important. I know this is your life and you're sharing as you're remembering, but you're hitting big walls here that I'm going to gently stop you and slow you down and have you go. You just said the auction rooms. I know what you mean, but others might not. Please, can you?
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that, because, yeah, as you say, I've lived it, and it's normalized for me, but I guess for other people it's not. So, when I got to the other side after the near-death experience and being taken over there, there's an auction room, a very big auction room that has everybody that's been taken. That's all different types of humans, different types of beings, because they don't just utilize, it's not just humans that get put into these programs. It's all beings. They take all different types of beings from different places. And not all of them are abducted. Some of them are going into a program because they've made an agreement to collect information and feed that back, as in my case. But then Beaver Boy, Joey, was next to me, and he has this big gap in his teeth, bless him. And he wears these big shoes that flop around. And I don't know why he does it. I did ask him, but I don't know. He said, "Why do you have two different color shoes, and why are they so big?" And I just took him under my wing. And we then were looking up at the screens, and we were looking up at what was coming, because you could see in all these different languages and the different codes, and you could see them bidding on different individuals. And then my screen came up, and then Joey, Beaver Boy's screen came up, and you could see. So he said, "What's going on?" I think they're bidding on us, and then we'll work out where we're going to go and work and what we're going to do. I said to him, "Don't worry, I'm sure we'll get nice people." And so he was bought by a mantis being, but the mantis being that had a huge lab that was doing DNA splicing, creating new flora, new fauna, getting the order in from a particular planet, and then working out what would work on this planet, what type of items would grow on this planet, what needed to be created for this planet. That is what that particular being was doing. He's a master DNA manipulator, designs the most beautiful flowers that I have never, even to this day, I've never seen anything like it. Absolutely beautiful. And he bought Joey, and he was terrified. And I said to him, "No, don't worry." And I was holding his hand, and then I ended up, he had white knuckles, I had white knuckles. I said, "Don't worry, let's see where I end up going." I said, "You never know, we might be lucky. We might end up knowing each other," because I said, the mantis being, from what I can see, that mantis being, I said, apart from being like amazingly big and very scary, he's actually very soft, and he's very kind. And it had that energy with him, like, I mean, I hate to say it, it's like almost Joey was going to be like a doggy, was going to be the person. He was the cleaner. He used to clean the labs, clean out everything. He slept underneath the unit, um, in a little crate, and basically just, he was there to help Master, which he refers to him as Master, and that was it. Very, very lovely, very peaceful. Wasn't interested in nonsense, wasn't interested in fighting, only interested in the creation of amazing plants and DNA by planet, depending which planets it was. So that happened to him. And then for me, I had to wait. Now, my contract with them was that I would go back into that area and I would go and find the information that they needed, which they couldn't extract out of the mines, or they couldn't extract from whatever process technology they were going to use, because it would leave a trace. So what I had to do is I had to go in, wait for whoever was going to do the buying, and then be utilized systematically to be able to be the person that would get the information out of them. And that's through a lot of either pillow talk or just general talk or entertainment talk or whatever. And that was pretty much what I was doing. And then I got sold.
Then you okay, so excuse me, to help put this together for others too. So you're saying that when you had your breast surgery, you passed and crossed over. During that time, in that white, excuse me, and why I'm suddenly like, during that time, you were in a room with other people. So you were an adult and Joey's a little boy, and you understand you're in some kind of a holding pattern with other beings, and you're being bought and sold for different programs, for different missions. When you came back into the body after the near-death experience, you'd been away. So this was how long it took. So literally, it looks like minutes. Or are we missing something here? Because we're going to come back to Joey in a second.
I think I think it was I would imagine for where I was in the bed, I think it was a long period of time.
Yeah.
But for where I was, it didn't feel like a long period of time. It feels like I arrived, we came into the bottom, we were unloaded, and we were taken, we were given our numbers. Mine is 126694. Still remember it. They're all of myself and my two clones are all 126694. That's my number. And that for me felt like ages, being moved into the cells, being taken out, being put into the auction house, being looked at. I mean, we went through things like stupid things, like them coming and having a look at us. There was a room that they had, and that room was just for those that had never been touched, in other words. So with whatever, they'd never had anybody go near them. So a bit wild. So there were those like me that were much older, that arrived older, and they would check things. And I think with the cancer being removed, at least I was safe, because I wasn't, I didn't have all sorts of things. I think I would have got a lesser fee if I still had the cancer with me. But yeah, that was all sorted. And then that's when our lives, both Beaver Boy, Joey, and myself, that's where our lives there started, is from the auction place, the auction house.
So it was very physical. You don't know that you're in a place and there's nothing you can do. You have to adapt to it. There's been few who've come back and said, I escaped early, or, it just sounds like they mostly do the 20 years, and some claim to have done a 40 and back, a 60 and back, and longer. I mean, gosh, I can't imagine the wear and tear on the body, mind, and soul for that. And obviously, there's more and more evidence, because we need evidence. People have a story. It's important. Everyone's story is important. Sometimes the story is not the reality. It's masking. The brain is protecting, because we know the brain will go for pleasure instead of pain. The brain is brilliant at helping block things out, or masking, or it's very complicated. But as this now human with two clones in a secret space program, and this was in South Africa, right? Where were you? Were you on Earth doing these missions? Were you on other planets? Were you on a spacecraft? Like, what was it? What did it look like?
Well, I was obviously living in South Africa. I only came back to the UK I came back,
No, no,
started in
I don't.
99.
I don't mean that. I mean when you were in the secret space program.
Oh, that, okay. Yeah. So it was the only bits I remember is the auction place. I remember the DNA, the master with the DNA, which was Joey. And then I remember this other facility, which was not a planet. It was something that had different layers in it, and it looked like some sort of a a planetoid or something that was something that could be moved here, there, and everywhere. That's all I could see. And then I was taken from the auction house to that facility, and that's where I remained. That's the work I did. Whatever information I was getting, I was given my contact, who was a feline, and I gave him the information. Pretty much that's it. It's not the most exciting. Never did any fighting, never did any, no, nothing, nothing, nothing like that. It was just very basic.
When you first left your body while you're being operated on, you said that you saw a light and you saw a door, or you
Yeah.
saw a portal and you saw a door, and
Mm.
you had feelings and emotions directly on looking at both of these, or
Mm.
openings. What do you think they were? Just go tell us about each one and what you felt in the body when you looked at them.
Well, it was a tremendous reaction. What I felt in the body was, I'm not going through either of those because neither of those are options for me. What I've got to do, I have a mission. This is what I've got to do. So the portal, I felt that if I'd, because it's very attractive. Oh my goodness, it's very alluring, and it's like, and there it is, and you get this peace that washes over you, and I'm like, chuff off. I don't want that. I want to go back and do my mission. Yeah, that's great. Cheers. I'm happy that it's peaceful and it's very pretty and it's very nice. And I know that if I walked through it, I would be somewhere else and I'd be doing a whole bunch of other things. But no, op it. I don't want to do it. So it was moving. It was very peaceful. It was very, it was just, it was just lovely. But then I was like, and it's a big but, what about what it is that I agreed to do? And I really felt like I'm going to be letting myself down, letting what I knew that I needed to do. Then as I turned, I looked at this ruddy door and I thought, no, I'm not going through the door. You can forget that too. That's not happening. And it's like a trickery. I know that sounds awful, but it's like, join the light, be the light. Just go to the light, go to the door. No, bugger off. It's a bit, I know it sounds awful because I know a lot of people say, yeah, I would have gone to the door. And I said, no, it's my choice. I'm not prepared to do that. I want to go do my job. I want to do my job. And that was what it was. Then they were both very lovely, very peaceful, there'll be no suffering. It was all very, very enticing, very beautiful, but it's not what I wanted to do.
I understand that. There are people like me, well, there's billions of us that are told that when we pass, we're going to see a light and we're going to follow the light and we're going to probably see a tunnel. And it's a very well rehearsed thing at this point. There are people that say that there's a reincarnation trap, a loop, and as things were mechanically structured in this matrix that we live in before, person would die, they'd see the light, they might see their relatives or whatever, or an angel, or be guided, be pulled, and then they would just go straight back into the reincarnation loop. There are people that say that we would come back, well, every 100 years, we would take on a new body, a new mission every 100 years. Um, I remember years ago being advised to read a book. I think it was called Journey of Souls. Michael, or I forget his name, I'm sorry, that there's two or three Journey of Souls, but I couldn't stand that book. And it was like the book, there's a madness for a book, and it was the book. And I read it, I read both of them, and I couldn't get through it because I kept reading, and going, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. And if this is true, this is not right, and I am not doing this. And what it was things like when someone died, left their body, they went to the other side. There were all these bloody souls standing around in lines, lining up. And I felt so no, abhorrent to it. No, I am not doing that. I am not accepting that. That is not right. And it may well be that someone else, that was a situation for certain people, certain souls. I don't know. I only read the book, and the book conjures imagination. Sometimes books, as you know, they conjure real memory. They're the spark that ignites the ley line in the brain, the neural pathway, the synapses point of like, boom, oh my gosh, it sparks something in you. That's what these terms all relate to. And I don't care for it. Michael Newman, I know people in the chat will be able to remember, but yeah, I didn't like it. But also ancient documents, like I read the Upanishads, I read the Vedas, I read the Mahabharata that I can't say very well. Like a lot of people, I'm not the only one. We took time to study, and the Vedas and the Upanishads really pissed me off because when there's ever a level of authority, of dogma, of domination in anything I read, where we're supposed to do this, do that, and then we're owned and we're governed, and there's fear in it. My whole soul is like, no, nah, nana, boo, boo, I'm not doing that. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it gets so crazy. And then there's people, because they are programmed, they are dominated and disciplined through no fault of their own. It's repetition, repetition, repetition. It may have been many lifetimes of people being programmed in this way. They are so shocked when somebody is outspoken against, the things. But you see, the things that you've gone through, having that near-death experience, being in a secret space program, having all these memories, being cloned, and knowing that it's not okay. It's completely and utterly evil. It's not okay. And so this is what we're bringing to an end in this earth matrix that we're in. We're shining a light on it. We're sharing the stories, and we're bringing it to an end. And it's as simple as that. And people get very, 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 very triggered. Like, who do you think you are, Dani? I run the biggest disclosure conference in the world. And when I say biggest, I mean the amount of people that bring the knowledge in the form of speakers, the rich tapestries of their life, their physical evidence that that's what sets me apart from other conferences. I bring the physical evidence. My speakers bring the physical evidence. And yet, I could say, oh, I should be really careful. I've got this great conference, just sick, and I shouldn't say this and that. Why not? This is what leadership looks like. It's raw, it's vulnerable, it's honest, it's open, it's not hiding. It's not somebody on the front stage, as I put myself, bringing these beautiful people forward, right? To try and have a curated persona, to try and be Miss Schlick. Thank God I have no partners in Jessica. It's just me on my own, by myself, completely alone. Every penny is on me. That is also leadership. Yes, so I
Yes.
don't have to sell out. I don't have to have speakers I don't want. I don't have to be blackmailed. You know what I mean? And all of what I'm saying is important and relevant, right? Because the conversation you and I are having is so crucial for people to understand and break down their own binds that tie. The,
Yeah.
the soul standing in line after crossing over. Maybe they didn't know they could kick out the line,
Yeah,
because
maybe. Yeah.
and these are all things that we absolutely have to bring to the light over and over and over again. One more thing on out of body experiences. In my growing up childhood, we lived in a not very good place, lots of other kids. And sometimes all the kids would come to our house and there'd be one person looking after us, right? While parents are at work or people are at work or whatever. Anyway, this person was not a good person, and would always was very handy with the hands,
Mm.
and would always say to me, don't worry, I'll never hit your head off the wall when I'm giving you a beating. And to this person, that was a good thing. That was a marker for them where they would stop. That means they wouldn't go, because they knew other people did that. So this one time, there was a ton of kids in the house. There were a couple of kids from church. I was so mortified. And this person, for no reason, kicks off on me. And they took under here, the back of my hair. And during this person's frenzy over, I have no idea to this day what I did. Nothing. Maybe put the cat out the bedroom or something, and it was the wrong thing to do. Anyway, I remember my head bouncing off the wall really hard, and then that shock in that 1 second, and then saying to myself, this person said they would never do that. And then all of a sudden, I'm standing on the other side of the bedroom and I'm looking back at myself, and this person's shaking my hair and my head and slapping me at the same time. And I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh my God, am I dead? No, I had left my body. I had left my body. Now, it was the smash of my head on the wall from the violence that bounced me out my body. But then I also, after this, remembered there were other times this person would beat up on me, and it would hurt the whole time you're being beaten. And then, of course, when they stop, so it really hurts anyway. Then there's all the stinging, that awful stinging after. And then I went when this person left my room, left me there. I didn't go downstairs to see the other kids. I was too embarrassed and crying. And then I realized there'd been other times this person had unleashed on me, and I didn't feel the pain during the beating, but I would feel it after. So there are lots of other people watching this who can relate to ways that they left their bodies during events, horrific events, events that we don't want to feel, not just physical, but also sexual, harmful, abuses, and so it is very similar because you are leaving, your energy frequency, your soul presence, your soul, your being, who you really are, because the physical vessel is just the car we're in, right? We're driving around in this body, but us, the real us, boom, out we come. So do you think there's a direct correlation to what you experienced as in near death and leaving into what I just explained?
Yeah, I think that is probable, most definitely. And the fact that you were able to see pretty much, you were able to see what was happening, you could see her shaking you. I think that you did step out just as much as I was stepping out at the time and listening to that silly twit talking about his tennis game, and then all hell broke loose. I think that those two, yeah, they are definitely the same. But I reckon that this is when the choices come in. And I would like to say out there, make your choices. If you don't want to go and you want to come back, you don't have to choose between the portal and the door or walking down the tunnel of light. You don't have to do that. I know that sounds really strange, but you don't have to do that. I chose to come back and do the work that I'm doing. And you, Danny, we're back in your body and you definitely doing the work, that's for sure.
Well, I was only across the room though, looking at myself. But I remember my mum. My mum's so sweet. She had a near-death experience when she was giving birth to me. There was a medical issue with me in the womb, and they thought I was going to die. And so we were taken to Hastings because there was a machine there that would have saved my life. But actually, she died. I mean, she's alive now. It was a near-death experience, but she died. So I was fine, as we can clearly see, and full of life. And she died, and she tells a story that she had a little boy. He was already 18 months old, and my dad was so handsome. He looked like Elvis, such a good looking guy, my dad. And she said that she's looking down on the bed, she can see herself dead and all the hemorrhaging. I'm being rushed off somewhere, my dad is crying, and she's looking down and she's fully aware, that there's a little boy and there's a newborn girl, me and her husband, and she doesn't care because she's not in the physical feeling emotional density. And she's up and she's in the light and she's going to the light. And she was told down the tunnel that no, not yet, go back. And then boom, she was back in her body. So yeah, her she's quite a spiritual lady. But yeah, lots of different people have their ways. But is there anything else we can share on your in out of body, being taken from the death journey into a program? Is there anything else you can remember? Do you remember any of the signals, the signs, the symbols, patches? That's always a good one. That does tend to help people remember what they were in, what the patches looked like, what color they were. Can you draw them? That kind of thing.
I probably could draw them. I do remember a lot of black uniforms, a lot of black uniforms. I do also remember people coming and going and coming and going that were speaking a lot of like high German or high something or other. And I only remember that because my ex-husband, he still alive. He's Michael, so he is from Germanic extraction. So, and I used to remember them speaking because they could speak German, and I would remember some of them. I think I'm sure I recognize what they're saying. So it was one of those. Do you remember those bits? The patch, I think I would be able to draw it. It was a funny type of patch, but it's one of those that I would really have to sit and try to connect with it because it's very, for me, it's unfortunate. It's like, it's patchy, bitty, bitty, bitty.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I remember one of the times Tony remembered Tony Rodriguez, who was taken in the secret space program and spent time on Ceres colony. So Ceres, the planetoid Ceres. in our solar system. And up there, it is completely densely inhabited by Germanics. They call themselves the Deutsche. They have their own currency, money, and on that currency are images of horses because they say the Deutsche, that they won the war against the ETs on Ceres on horseback using horses. Don't ask me how they got them up there, okay? But this is something that he covers very heavily in his book, Ceres Colony Cavalier. There's, with the spiritual aspect, Bev, let's go there a bit. People, again, programmed, as I was, very heavily in the Jesus and the evangelical Pentecostal insanity because it messed me up as a child. I mean, first of all, seeing this beautiful man, Jesus, hanging on a cross, people don't even think how traumatizing that is for a child.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've got that, and then adults have no understanding, no sympathy, and that's a fact. It's Jesus. He died for our sins. You silly child. You should remember that. We should, again, because of their own programming and
Mm.
brainwashing. But if you do take a moment to understand a little tiny child seeing a dead body hanging on a cross,
It's
how
awful.
awful is that, right?
Yeah.
And I can't bear to see Jesus in that way. I can't bear it. He should be taken down because what people also don't realize, and I'm going to trigger and push some buttons, and that's okay. I'm doing it in love, guys. I'm doing it to help you think about something in a slightly different way rather than just get all angry and, make a claim. He died for our sins, Dani. How dare you? No, how dare you keep yourself stuck in that mind frame? Because maybe what you don't realize is that it's Satan laughing at Jesus. Satan having dominion over Jesus. The more Jesus is sin hanging on the cross, the more Satan goes, ha ha. And there's so much more we could go into at this point. We probably won't. But, I long for the day when I don't see a single other dead Jesus hanging on a cross and that people globally think about the children, not themselves. Not, oh, look at me, I'm a good Christian. Look, I'm wearing a cross with Jesus on it. Or he died for our sins. Yeah, well, it didn't work, did it? That's the other thing. If we were all so sinful and Jesus died because we were so bad, yeah, that's another made up story, but let's just go there for a minute. Why are we all still suffering? And where is he? Oh, the second coming, he's coming. Is he? Well, he should have come a long time ago if he was coming. And then we come down to it's us, it's our journey. Jesus came to show us how to do it, not to die on a cross, not to crucify ourselves, not to die for other people, but to go within. And like he always said, who I am, you are too. What I do, you will do better. The kingdom of God is inside the soul, the energy, the amazing things we can do. And this is what we're all trying to break people out of their own self-contained matrix and prison, right?
Exactly. And I think that is key. And when you start looking at this flame that is within people, when you start looking at all the different cultures, of late, I've been very blessed in that we've been working through the remote viewing. We've been working on finding there's about 400 and something children that were part of the American First People that were in schools, and we're trying to find them now. So, but what reminds me of that is that one of the chiefs that was talking to me about this, that we're working with them, they had said that the creator had decided to hide the light of the soul and the light of the great creator in a place so that humans would find it when the time was right. So I said, "Oh, wow, that's an amazing story. It's beautiful. Where did they hide it?" And he said to me, he said, "They didn't hide it in the beavers. They didn't hide it in the sea because the whale said he would do it." And he said, "Do you have an idea where they hid it?" And I said, "No, I don't really. Please tell me the story." And he said, "They hid the light inside human beings, because that is one place that they would not look for it and they wouldn't find it." And I was like, "That's so sad." Because, yeah, but then I thought about it, I thought, this wise man is so amazing. And actually, yes, they would have found it in the dolphins, they would have found it in the beaver, they would have found it whatever. But they don't look inside themselves. And what a place to hide it Yes, they hid the light within. I was like, oh my God, that is just so true. Go within, look inside, energize your light, activate yourself, start awakening, use your light, get that internal flame going. And I thought, well, I've got to share that with you because it's only something that I've recently heard over the last sort of 6, 7 months. And it's just so true. We don't go within. We expect somebody else to do everything for us.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. And it's difficult too, I think, when we're recognizing how entrapped and imprisoned and
Mm,
enslaved an individual is. Like I don't know where this comes from, but this ability to look at someone clairvoyantly, but I also don't need to see their face. I can feel them. Someone can tell me about someone, and I'm right there. It's energy to energy. And so gray programming, the awful things that the grays did to so many
mm,
beautiful humans, and there's so much still happening. People's programs are switching on, that they're being activated as a last desperate attempt at bringing a program that was here to enslave a planet. So even if the program is well hidden, and so many of them are, I can feel them, see them, sense them. It's like an alarm that goes off in me. It has a smell, it has a color, it
mm.
has a sound, it has a frequency, and it is an all at once thing. An all at once thing. I can look at someone physically and I can see if they've got an actual implant, even if it's a multi-dimensional, which most of them are. Most of them aren't just physical. I mean, there was a program where I don't, Whitley Strieber, I think, had an image done of his head, and you can see he's an older man, a contactee. I think he talks about the grays. I haven't read his books. He keeps popping up. I should probably read, but there's so many people with real experiences in different ways on this incredible planet, which is within a matrix, and it's a construct designed by other beings, and people have such a hard time, accepting that, because you get them for so long in a conversation like this, and then the minute you hit the religious button, they're like, oh, no, out, I'm out, I'm out.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah.
handle it. It's too much. Blasphemer, black witch.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've had them.
Off with
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
I
Got
know, but
tied to the tree at school. Tied to the tree at school. They were going to burn me at the tree.
what?
Yeah, no, the principal, the head teacher had to come and take me off the tree and said, I think for your own protection, I think it's a really good idea that every break now you come and have lunch in the teacher's lounge in the corner over there because we can't guarantee your safety.
Okay, well, how did that come about? Share that story with us.
Unfortunately, with all the stuff that was happening at home, the being moved around or whatever, when I had to go to school. I had to. So I had to go to school. And I think what happened was I was very different and I was very, away from everybody else. But yet the other girls would say, well, Beverly knows about these things. Go and ask her what a blowjob is. Go and ask her what this is. Yeah. Cheers for that, mate. And I would say, and I would just deny it and say, I don't know what that is. Well, ask about, what is oral? What is oral? What is this? And I'd say, well, it's probably just talking about the act, and I just like really, because I'd been trained for so long, you don't say anything. If somebody approaches you and asks you questions, you say nothing. You deny, you deny, you deny all the time. So I was following what I had been taught. But then one or two of the girls had said, oh, but she knows everything. She's got those funny eyes, these funny eyes. She's a witch. And that then went around like social media, yeah, around the school like wildfire. And this is where, and then over the weeks, it was building, it was building, it was building, it was building. Then one of the teachers, very tall, dark black hair, black eyes, and she kept picking on me, picking on me, picking on me, picking on me. And I used to, and I still have reasonably long nails. Now at school, we were never allowed long nails. So she used to come to me, she'd take my nails and she used to bend them back. And she used to say, Rhodes, you're not allowed nails. Go to the office, get the clippers, bring them here. I'm going to cut them off.
God.
Yeah. So I'd chuff off to the office, get the clippers, come back here, miss, there's the clippers. And she'd literally just take my finger and she'd clip them and she'd clip them and she'd clip them and she'd clip them.
Oh, I want to slap her stupid Bev right. That horrible bitch.
I
Me,
did.
me,
I
me.
did. I did. But
Good.
I did it in such a, yeah, this is what happened. So I stupidly, silly, when she finished the last one, I won't say her name, but I will say Mrs. C said, may you fall off your roof and be in a wheelchair forever. Yeah, in front of the whole class. Oops. And what happened? She never came to school on Monday. She came back to school 7 weeks later with both of her legs in casts in a wheelchair. And that's what happened. Intention, I was so, you have that ball of energy where you're so embarrassed. It's so sadistic. They embarrassed you. They shame you. They cutting all the nails in front of everybody, making you feel this big as worthless. And not only then was I worthless at school, but then I was worthless at home too. So where do you go with that? You don't. So this was welling up, welling up, welling up. And when she finished the last one, that's what I said to her. And I thought that I'd said it under my breath, but I hadn't. And you could hear the rest of the class go, sharp intake of breath. But then
Mm.
you've got to realize at that time what I was being moved with, where I was being transported, who I was with, and what the person that was my handler, where he was in the pecking order. Because he was grandmaster.
Mm.
So whatever it was, it's like off it went. And I thought, oh, 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 oh. And then when she didn't come, then Monday was like, shh, in schools, I just, shh.
Yeah.
And then you get this lay teacher that comes and whatever, where is Mrs. C? You know, is she where what's happened? And then by Wednesday, the rumor mill of the school had happened. She'd had an accident. She was, she couldn't use her legs at the time and she'd broken both of her legs, etc., etc. And then, of course, ding, they remembered Rhodesy, nickname from school. Rhodesy had said, nah, 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 nah. So then by the second week, when Miss C came back, it was like, she did this to you, she did this to you, she's the one, she wished this on you. And that was it. So it was like this whole mob thing. And, where the sports area was past the quad, took me to the tree and said, right, that's it. Alles klar, you finished. That's it. You're gonna be that's your fate. That's what's gonna happen. And then people were running and going to the headmaster and saying, there's lots of trouble going down. You better come because otherwise something really unfortunate is gonna happen.
Mm.
So that was it. That's the story there.
Wow. Got to ask the question. Do we know how she broke her legs?
She didn't fall off a roof, I don't think.
I know a house fell on her.
No, no, I think she had a car. I think they had, in certain countries that it's a bit manic on the roads. And, a lot of people just in those days, I mean, we are going back a very long time, more than sort of 40, 50 years. So yeah, it wasn't a safe thing. And I think, as far as I remember, she did have a car accident
Mm.
and she wasn't driving. Her partner, with her other half, her husband, whatever, he was driving, and I think this is what happened to her. So I mean, it's just that it just so happened that when she came back to school to do the class, she was still in her recovery, and she was exactly what I had wished upon her, is exactly as they saw her.
Mm.
And it's like, oh my God, it's that one. And then that was it. And you know how it is. It's fear response, create the problem, find the solution. That's the solution for this, And yeah, not a pretty sight.
So I know in the past, I'm just going to pause for a second. I've got to check something with you first, see if we've got permission. I just got permission from Darling Bev. because she's mentioned her last name several times, Rhodes, Rosie's, Rhodes.
Mhm.
And Bev's long-term bloodline family, the Rhodes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history, a lot of dark history, also
Mhm.
a lot of bloodline controversy, same as the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and other families that we hear about. So you are okay with also sharing some of the history of your family. I'm so nervous. I keep wanting to switch screens, but I'm worried that it's not working because I can't tell. And our broadcasts get interfered with all the
Oh,
time.
they always do. And there's a spy in here at the moment. I don't know if you've seen it. It's been flying around.
Right.
Yeah, there's a spy, and then there's one that fixed up over there, and I just had to get rid of it. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, people will be able to actually see me on the screen and not just hear me.
Yeah, I'm just
Is-
going to leave the two of us on there. Sorry, guys, I'm on here too, but let's talk about your heritage. And even very famous people have come at you and really criticized you just for having that last name.
Oh yes. Oh, we're talking about the Isle of Wight, Isle of Widget, Isle of Wight
You can
person.
say his name. I don't care. I don't know the guy, so I don't care. It's up
Oh
to
yeah, you just got to go on his, if you're reading David Icke's books, he does have he has on his site said a few times, she's reptilian, she's a Rhodes, she's reptilian, this is what she is. Watch her eyes change, and I just laugh. Seriously, I laugh. But that's it. That is the bloodline. It's the Rhodes bloodline. It's all of those aspects, which is the bloodline of the body, their body, the husk body. That's the bloodline of the body. But because unfortunately I was a bit of a rebel when they were doing all these things, there was always issues, as in when I didn't want to be a good girl and I didn't do as I was told, which was very often, because I'm a bit of an arsey cow, actually. Yeah, who knew? Who knew?
strong-minded, lovely lady.
Yes, yeah. But when I was much younger, scary. And it was like, okay, if you don't do as you're told, this is going to be a punishment. So that's when they used to, unalive the kittens and unalive the doggies and all of this horrible, horrible stuff that they did. And eventually I just used to say, well, I used to say, well, okay, do your worst. Do your worst to me. Leave the animals alone, and that was it. But we moved past that because the Rhodes are a very powerful family. You've got to realize the best friend of the Queen, the late Queen, was Lady Margaret Rhodes. There's a huge history there that you can't get away from. But I made sure that I got away from it and turned my back on them. I said, no, I don't want anything to do with them. And that was eventually by the age of 50 and a half when I ran away and broke that broomstick and said, that's it, I'm not doing this anymore. You come for me and that's it. I'll take you out. So they are, yeah. And it's when you look at the bloodlines, they're in South Africa a lot. No surprise that we, ended up in SA in South Africa, sorry. You've got all of that. And that whole bloodline that's there, is all embedded in everything that we've been talking about, everything that we know, all the how they back each other up. I mean, my handler was absolutely best friends with what was Prince Charles, now our kingy wing here, you know, due to depart at some point quite soon. So from that point of thing, you end up with all of this, and you keep quiet for a certain period of time, and then when the time is right, which is now, when I'm much older and I couldn't care less actually, then fine, you want to come and get me, come and get me. You've tried so many times before. I've had, like, even just this week, I had three, these three daggers that came, and I thought, oh, here we go. What have they seen now? What is it that they don't like me talking about something? They don't like me talking about the organization in South Africa, which I'm going to blast open pretty soon. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of it. But yeah, the Rhodes family and the Rhodes bloodline is a very, very powerful bloodline. It's no surprise that you've got the Rhodes Foundation, you've got the Rhodes educational facilities, because that's how they draw them in, and that's how they give them all of these initiations. And there is loads of stuff. If you People seem to not look at the Rhodes family too much. They tend to look at the usual suspects, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Rothsteins, all of those. They tend to look at those more. I think it's probably because it's too far down the track.
Mhm. Well, there are other names coming up to the fore now that people are starting to get a clue on because it's kind of old news, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, etc.
Mm,
But yeah, there are others that will be taking center stage as people have the courage to look into these things. So thank you for being brave. It does take some guts, and you're obviously not your family, you're not the ancient heritage, and we don't
no.
know the ancestors that came together with these names that did curses and did deals
Mm,
and did soul contracts and which was a deliberate kind of plan to rule, and
yes,
that ruling
yeah.
hasn't gone anywhere, and people misplace royal families who've infiltrated. If we look at the British bloodline of royalty, and again, it's like the religious button. As soon as I go there and tap that, oh, people switch off. They just can't let themselves because it means
Mm,
they were wrong. But it's not their fault. It's none
mm.
of our fault. We were all
Conditioning.
incredibly lied to. We've been
Mm,
lied to. So it's not something to take personal. It's not an attack on a person. It's a reality saying, sorry, darling, but you were lied to. And so the original bloodline royal family are not all of the ones that we're looking at sitting on thrones today. And I
yes,
don't just mean in England,
all
I
over.
in Germany, Austria, like all the different principalities. Um, Interesting. I was in Monaco a few weeks ago, as you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I went there for the Grand Prix. It is such a, I don't know, bilge pump of ostentatiousness and money. And I'm with my friend Haley, and I find it vulgar. But I also used to play polo as well because I'm mad, like you, mad about horses, and I had
Mm,
an opportunity. And again, you see a level of this vulgarity that I consider vulgarity, which is this over the top, ostentatious. I remember going to a polo ball, which was so fun. It was all the stable girls and boys and the polo managers and all of us lot riders because we all had our own horses and stuff. And it was really hard work. I worked really hard to buy my horses. I was running my space agency at the time, and anyway, I went in the bathroom at this ball. And there was a girl and a guy in one of the, which I never like. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. I'm not. Anyway, so I went to wash my hands and realized there's two people, and they invited me into the cubicle to do coke, which I've never done, which is just not my thing. I don't do drugs, never been attracted to it. Smoked weed a few times, can't even do that anymore, can't even take one puff, can't even smell it. Anyway, and this girl invited me in the loo to do coke, and I was so embarrassed. I kind of looked down and noticed her shoes, right? And I said, "No, thank you, but I love your shoes." And she, right, and she said, Prada, like I give a shit, and like I would know because I don't know, right? And she went, Prada. And then she looked at me furious and she went, ugh, last season, you know. And I was like, oh, and I'm already on my way out. And she got mad at me because her Prada shoes were last season. Oh, dear God.
oh dear.
You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would never have known they could have come from Primark. For all I know, Primark does great shoes. But anyway, the ostentatious, the aristocracy, the desire to be, because we've been given a false god, a false idol, which is money, which is fame, which is celebrity at the top of the pyramid. And walking around Monaco, the center of Monaco is called Monte Carlo,
Yeah.
and then the rest of it is Monaco, and then overall it's a principality. And it's, God, it's so hilly, up and down hilly, but you get escalators everywhere. There's lifts everywhere, public lifts down to the port. It's just crazy, crazy place. And everywhere we walked during the Grand Prix weekend, men and women, whoever, had parked their big Lamborghinis, right? Lambos everywhere. And my friend, she's like, Dani, do you want to go and stand? I'm like, no, thanks. Why? Like, no, I've no interest. I've hideous, ugly, bright green, and it's just like pompous and boring to me. If they
Yeah, it is.
a horse there, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Beautiful
Yeah.
Bentley or something classic
Um,
that was built, or Aston Martin, a DB4 or DB5. That to me would have been, I wouldn't have posed in a picture with it, but anyway, to just again making the point of the whole illusionary.
Mm.
This is what is important, people. This is what really matters, and none of it matters.
No, it
You're not
doesn't.
taking a Birkin bag with you when you pop your clogs, love. You know, ugly bag.
No,
Ugly bag.
the only thing you're taking with you is what you have done, what you've been able to create and do in this lifetime as a soul. And I think the quicker people realize that it doesn't matter what you're wearing or how you are, nothing matters. It's when you move out of this body, what goes with you and what's in the Akashic records and what you have done. That's all it is. I
Yeah.
think going back to your comment, the worst car that I ever saw once was when I was still involved in all this nonsense. There was a gold Ferrari. It was gold, like metallic gold, had gold hubcaps and had white seats with gold trim. And I was like, oh my agony aunt, go and get this out of the way. It was the ugliest thing I'd ever seen. And everybody was like, oh, and I'm like, oh, okay. All I was worried about is what's the job? What job have we got to do here? What are we doing today? Who am I servicing? How many am I servicing? And how quickly can I get home and how quickly can I get to my horse in the stables? That was all I was interested in.
Yeah. I don't know. It's terrible. You've been through so much on so many levels, and at the beginning, of life, you alluded to, that this high senior Masonic, your handler, who posed as a father figure in your house that you were raised in, would, it's just so disgusting. I can't imagine. It just doesn't. Another reason why people find it so hard to believe some of the horrors that happen to our children is because it's just too awful that your father, sorry, the handler would sell your dirty knickers for 20 quid for his friends to sniff.
Mm.
Who even can come up with that? How could that be a thing? A little girl's underwear, how could it even be? It's so debased. And a lot of these debased behaviors come from beings that are way darker than humans. And
Oh,
these are
yes.
demonics. These are the demonics, the possessed human bodies possessed and doing deals with demonics, right?
Mm. It is. And the thing is that it's not what it becomes very normalized. And this was where I used to think about when I'd left and managed to get away. I used to think, I never remember my knickers going into the wash because he always had in the back of the vehicle, he always had a pack of that particular brand. And it was never, anybody didn't even realize that it was always a brand new pair of knickers every single time. And then they would disappear. But he had them underneath the spare wheel. There was in like a Ladybird Marx's packet underneath there in a brown package. So, it would be, well, when that one's ready, when that one's cooked, that's the word. When that one's cooked, I'll take that one off and change it quickly, put the next one on, and then put the name of the chap on it. And then he would do his rounds and take it to the lodge and say, right, there's yours, there's yours, there's yours, and there's yours. And I'm like, oh my goodness me. And he was even worse because, as you get older, things smells change, and then as you get to 13 or whatever the case is and you've got those other monthly moon cycles, then he would find a way to make it difficult so that I would have to either go down to the office at school and say, miss, I've got a moon cycle, can you please give me whatever I need? And then that would be part of it. But where you have the oops and you've got to change, that oops would be taken and that would be sold too.
Oh my
I
God.
know, agony aunt. Yeah, it's just
Oh my
so
God. He's
rude,
selling
rude,
your
rude, rude, rude.
he was selling your menstruation pads, just for those that can't read between the lines.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
that is, yeah, and the knickers as well at the same time. So you've got all of that happening at the time, and then that was every month. So he used to keep a track on when my cycle was, and then he would make sure that I couldn't take to school what I needed to take to school with me to make sure that was fine. And then he would engineer it, the sod. He'd engineer it so that I didn't, and if he knew that it was in my bag wrapped up, he would go in and he'd take it out. And then, of course, it would arrive as it does. And you think, okay, I've got it in. And then I'd take my bag and I'd be rummaging through my bag, taking everything out my bag, looking for it, obviously gone. And by that time, the damage is done to your knickers. So you've got to go all the way to the office and say, Miss, can I have a belt and can I have a, those other things, the coaties. And then you start, all over again. And then you'd have to say to them, if you've got a spare pair of, and then they'd give you these most revolting, bright, dark blue, old granny pants that you'd have to wear. So I couldn't carry on wearing those. And then she put them in a plastic bag. And I felt like saying to her, just throw it away. But then I did that once and I never did that again. Because then he said, where is it? Why, what's happened? Do you know how much money I've lost because you've just, you've thrown away your pants? Do you know how much? And I'm like, okay. So I never did it again because I got punished for that as well.
Oh my God. You poor thing. I mean, you just can't imagine you as a little girl, like not a single private thing were you allowed. Nothing of your body, fluids from your body was even yours. It's just, you're
But
so,
that's it. They own you. They own you. That's the problem. And all you've got is your light to fight back with. And that's all I did. Eventually they realized that they couldn't really get to me. The only way they could get to me is to find out what's important. What does she love? And I mean, it wasn't anybody else. There was no human being around me at all. It was always the animals. And even right down to the end when I was getting ready to run away, I had to go and say goodbye to my horse, my beautiful old boy, because I knew the first thing that the sods would do is they'd go for old boy. And he didn't deserve that, but I at that point I made peace with it and thought, I've got to go, I've got to go, I've got to go, and I did. But I knew they would be the ones that were paying. They were, and they got rid of Kiara, which was the chestnut thoroughbred. She was gone, beautiful mare. She was gone. She got sold. But old boy, mm-mm, old boy, no, he didn't have a good end. He ended up being taken and sold to some people that did horrible things to him, and they made sure that I knew about it.
oh my God.
But I never went back, ever.
Wow. Ah, Beverly, just so wicked. It's just so wicked. And this time that we're in, as we're kind of bravely bringing all these informations, and obviously a lot of these awful things have happened to you, and it's a way of people to anchor into you to hear, be in a safe space, my channel, and hear these things, and then have their minds opened. And it is upsetting, it is devastating. It also helps others with their own healing. It helps them understand. And again, we're programmed to follow and respect the authorities, the adults in our world. And,
Yes, yes.
for me, that, I mean, yeah, I mean, have more respect for a newborn, beautiful baby than I do for any
Mm,
single a person on the planet. We're here to support, to love, to lean in. We're a human family. I mean, some are naughty, obviously, different reasons, but basically, this is a time of our own kind of individual empowerment and finding people that we connect to and can be safe with. And I got a call or a message the other day from when I did my last conference, Galactic Spiritual Informers. There was a group of people I took to different churches and different ancient sites, and really lovely people. I hired a coach, we drove around, it was beautiful. And now these people are in their own little WhatsApp group. And so
oh,
within that, they can be who they be. They can share, they can talk, they are not going to be judged. And this is again what I'm encouraging, having my conferences, for example, is bringing people together on that frequency of love, exploration, ownership, compassion, healing, reality of this planet and everything else. And of course, that then encourages or conjures different behaviors in people. And I've decided that I said to my friend the other day, because as you know, Beverly, I'm very outspoken, and if someone's lying, and if I know they're lying, but I've decided I need to stop now. I can't keep saying to people, she's a fantasist, she's got a grey program, that one over there, totally owned by the greys. I mean, if someone comes out, Beverly,
mm,
I'm always saying anti grey, right? Grey alien, just stop it. Don't even
absolutely. Yep.
in a war. The war hasn't ended. They've left booby traps in people. But if some girl comes out, right, let's say on TikTok, because she knows her friends because they're older than her, they're not going to be on TikTok. They're on Facebook and YouTube, right? But this sneaky cow, she's on TikTok, right? And if you see someone and they say, the Greys would like you, the Greys, all
Oh,
the
God.
Greys would like you to know. The Greys would like me to know. How about the Greys need a boot up the arse,
At
Sarah?
the bottom. Yeah,
Like,
God.
what are you
Oh,
doing?
wow.
Grace would like us to know. And then that same bint is rewriting ancient history or trying to, right? I would never trust anything she writes because she's owned by the Greys. The Greys want you to know. They want you to know. And always deflecting, my clients tell me. Anyway, so someone like that who's putting people in trance, bringing through God knows what, is writing books on ancient Atlantis and ancient Lemuria. You're rewriting history, dollface. Why are you doing that? Who's going to trust that? The
Mm,
Greys want you to know. Hello, ding, 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 ding. Yeah, I'm not going to be doing this anymore,
good.
you know? But that's a good example of why I've been so outspoken. And at this stage, you know, if people want, just to believe everyone and everything. And I said to my friend the other day, I said, listen, you and we got caught up in the trap along with them, everybody else who's fighting
Yeah,
against each other.
yeah,
And to me, it's like we're in the corner, and this is a horrible analogy, but this is how I feel about it all now.
yeah.
We're in the corner of the public toilets, right? We're in the corner and we're all like this up against each other. How crowded is it? But then if you come up and you pull out and you look down, you
Mm,
realize how tiny this group of people all trying to be the big voice in galactic informing.
mm,
And so I said to my friend, I'm done. I'm going to let them all play in the corner of the public toilets, all trying to hustle for position. I'm by there, by there. I guess it was a time, and it's pointless now. So, like I said, people be careful who you listen to, including me. I could be a big manipulator, psychological, I know how to, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm trained Western medicine, I am, could be me, I'm like, I'm so over it. I'm so over it. People are going to lead with their hearts, and that's their big lesson. And now they're all confused, Beverly, right? Oh my God, they write to me, Dani, I'm God love you. I'm sorry, guys. I can't answer every single email, and I'm not going to, because you are on an individual journey. Someone's taken a sharp right turn off track and is going against the exact things they said they believed in. Go over there. Look at that. Why did that happen? It's not a sudden revelation if you've been for years supporting, certain ideals and ideas and things that have been long term proven, military off planet, military on planet, and
yeah,
suddenly you're going a different route. Who now is surrounding? Who is covering that person? Who is hoodwinking that person? Go look, go look, go look. I'm not fighting that. I'm not fighting it. It's not my fight. I'm just going to continue on doing what I'm doing. And that's it. And I think that's all we can do, you know? And for people to go, right, I'm going to stop being upset, hurt, and confused. I feel let down. Me too, mate. Me too. I feel let down too. Okay.
mhm,
But it is what it is. And so now don't trust every single thing you hear or see. Don't celebrate. Don't worship. Don't follow the leader.
yeah.
'Cause you've got to be your own leader. What say you to all of that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I love the analogy, reminds me of the school bathroom. It's just the same nonsense. I agree with you because it's right back to that first saying that I was mentioning is the light was hidden inside us by the creator, by source. Go and find that light inside you, and whatever it is that resonates for you, that's your journey. Don't go, saying, oh, that person says that I'm going to do exactly the same as what he or she says. Don't create these people as gods because they'll just be false gods. You are you. You know you far better than anyone else does. And if something resonates with you, go with what your soul is telling you because your soul, it will never be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, so true, so true. Well, my love, we've covered again a lot of subjects, a lot of opening doors in people's minds, or the invitation is certainly there. I think we've definitely covered things that we set out to. Let me come to you for final words of the day.
Final words of the day is always difficult because there's so many lovely words that you could say out there, and I'm not the greatest with words. So what I'm going to say is join the light and make the difference, be the difference. That's the most important thing. Is if somebody comes to you with something, look at it with honesty, with courage, and forgiveness. And no matter what it is that's coming to you, because it's difficult times right now, it really is. No matter what is coming to you, have a look at what am I missing? What is it that I can look at and say, how can I make the difference? And if I can't make the difference, and if I can't be the difference, then step back, because then somebody else will take that path for you. If you cannot do something good for somebody, do not do any harm.
That's beautiful. If you can't do something good for somebody, don't do the harm. Don't do the harm. You know, this broadcast and the last couple, the one that just came out, which isn't out yet as we're recording this, it's coming out in a couple of days. There are, again, you and I, we're taking such a journey where we're kind of, opening up so many boxes, we're all Pandora's box, and our intention is for people to, you got to feel both, right? There's so many painful, awful things on the planet. Nobody gets away without feeling some of them. But again, for people to really make a decision on who they want to be in the world, and we don't need to know every single thing. Like sometimes I think, gosh, I feel so happy for the people that will never have to experience things that you've experienced or I've experienced. I'm happy for them. But sometimes, and I've seen this before, as a therapist, one little girl, her brothers and sister were, I don't know, 15, 20 years older than her.
Oh, wow.
They had an awful time with physical beatings from parents and an uncle in the house. And then by the time this other little girl came along, all the kids are like 15 plus. So this little girl comes along and she's treated as a child should be treated, with love, compassion, and care. But the siblings were so messed up and damaged from their childhood, they would tell her all kinds of stories. And when she turned 19, she had a full and complete breakdown, nervous breakdown, because of the guilt she felt.
Mm.
Sometimes it can actually backfire, so we have to be careful, but we can't manage how someone's going to respond to information. And I guess they're my final words. We can't manage the expectations or the response to stimuli outside of someone that's going to trigger something inside. You just have to recognize, everyone, that you're on a journey. May it be loving, may it be safe, may you be protected, and may you grow, because healing is possible. So, Beverli Rhodes, again, thank you, my love. I will see you soon.
Thank you, Dani. Have a wonderful week ahead, and thank you for bringing all the information you always bring, this lovely woman that you are.
And you too, my love. Thank you so much. And to you guys out there, thank you again. I know there's areas of this broadcast that are a little bit like, ooh, ooh, oh no, she didn't. Yeah, but I did. And Beverly sharing her, in-depth journey too. So sending you so much love from my heart to yours. Stay strong, guys. I know it looks crazy out there, and we don't want to get too caught up in the down treading of humanity and the energy right now. We want to keep doing the healing, so we keep raising up. It is our individual spark, our source, our energy that's going to get us out of this matrix. I send you love from my heart to yours, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, Bev.